So in this first video, we're going to talk about the steps of carrying out a hypothesis test, and then in subsequent videos, we're going to kind of expand on each of these steps and kind of go through them one by one. All right, so carrying out a hypothesis test. Carrying out hypothesis test. All right, so in general, the first step is to specify your null and alternative hypothesis. Alternative hypothesis. The second step is going to be to specify the significance level which we often denote with alpha. Sorry if that's not clear. Let's redo it with alpha. Specify the significance level that you are interested in. Scroll down here. The third step is to calculate the test statistic. Now we can have different test statistics, and we're going to see different test statistics in this course. Right now, the most common one we're going to kind of see is a t statistic. So let's put example t statistic. In other classes, you might have calculated like the z statistic and things like that. This fourth step, there's kind of two different kind of strategies we can have to try to get a conclusion about our test. So the first strategy is to find the critical value maybe I'll say of your significance level. Again, it's called alpha. And then we're going to compare the t statistic that we, or the test statistic, but let's say the t statistic, to this critical value. So we're going to reject the null if the absolute value of your t-stat is greater than the critical value, and we're going to fail to reject if the opposite is true. As less than t-crit. So that's one way of coming up with a conclusion about our test. The other way that we can imagine is to use something called a p-value. So we could find the p-value of our test statistic and we can compare that to the significance level that we picked up there on the other step. In step 2, I think it was, if we scroll up here. Yeah, step 2. Okay, and so we're going to reject the null. Sorry, that's pretty messy. Reject the null if, your p-value is less than alpha, so that significance level. You're going to fail to reject the null if your p-value is greater than alpha. So those are kind of the steps that we have to hypothesis testing. The first step is to specify our null and alternative hypothesis. The second step is to specify the significance level you're interested in. We'll talk about what that significance level is. We're going to calculate our test statistic. The most common one we're going to see for the next little bit is the t statistic. And then finally, to come up with a conclusion about our test, we can do two different methods. The first is to find the critical value of the significance level you've chosen and compare this t-statistic, or this test statistic, to this critical value. You're going to reject if this test statistic, or the absolute value of it, is greater than the critical value, and fail to reject in the opposite case. Alternatively, we could use the p-value. And so to do this, we'd, calculate the p-value for the test statistic that we have. So in this case, let's say a t-stat, and we're going to reject the null if this p-value is below our significance level, and we're going to fail to reject the null if the p-value is above our significance level. And so notice that the kind of signs are reversed depending on which method you use, so you really need to pay attention and kind of know which method you're using and whether you should be looking for whether it's greater than or smaller than.